The warship Krithos 9 floated in deep space like a massive blade 0.3 kilometers long. Armed with weapons powerful enough to erase cities from orbit, IT was one of the most feared ships in the entire Galactic Alliance. Inside the central command deck, dozens of alien officers worked quietly at glowing consoles. Blue holograms floated in the air, showing star maps and fleet movements. Everything was calm. Everything was perfectly controlled. And then a human walked in holding a mop. The room immediately went silent. Commander Ralvex slowly turned his tall reptilian head toward the door. The human wore a simple gray maintenance uniform, but a bucket rolled beside him. The mop squeaked across the polished metal floor. One of the alien officers chuckled. "Commander, why is a human janitor walking into the command deck?" A few officers laughed quietly. Humans were new to the Alliance. Not soldiers, not officers, just workers, engineers, technicians, and apparently janitors. The human looked around calmly. "Sorry," he said casually. "Floor maintenance schedule." Another officer smirked. "You humans clean floors now?" More laughter. The human shrugged. "Someone has to clean the mess you aliens keep making." The room went quiet for a moment. Commander Ralvex narrowed his glowing eyes. Humans had a strange reputation. They were quiet. They rarely argued. But when something went wrong in a station or ship, humans were usually the ones fixing it. Still, a janitor was just a janitor. "Finish quickly," the commander said coldly. The human nodded. "Yes, sir." He started mopping the floor like nothing was unusual. The officers quickly ignored him and returned to their work. Star maps rotated. Fleet signals updated. Everything was normal again for about 5 minutes. Then suddenly, a loud alarm exploded across the bridge. Warning. Warning. Core instability detected. The entire room froze. Red emergency lights began flashing. One of the engineers shouted. "Commander, the reactor is spiking." Another officer panicked. "Power output rising past safe limits." The commander slammed his claws onto the console. "How?" "No enemy attack detected. Internal systems malfunction." The ship suddenly shook, hard. Lights flickered across the entire deck. Across the warship, hundreds of systems started failing at the same time. Navigation, weapons, life support. Chaos spread instantly. The commander roared, "Send engineering teams to the reactor." But the reply came back immediately. "Commander, engineering is locked out." The commander's eyes widened. "What?" The officer turned pale. "System access failure across all decks." The warship trembled again, this time harder, somewhere deep inside the massive vessel. The reactor began to scream, and standing quietly in the corner of the command deck, the human janitor stopped mopping. He slowly looked up at the flashing red alarms. Then he sighed. He leaned the mop against the wall, picked up his coffee cup, and muttered calmly, "Yep, I knew that was going to happen." The nearest alien officer turned toward him. "What did you say?" The human took a sip of coffee, then looked at the panicking command deck, and spoke very calmly. "You guys didn't check the coolant regulators this morning, did you?" The officer blinked. "How would a janitor know that?" The human smiled slightly. Then the entire warship went dark. Total blackout. In the darkness, the human's voice echoed calmly. "Well, now you're going to need a janitor." Darkness swallowed the entire command deck. For a moment, no one moved, and one spoke. Only the faint hum of emergency batteries remained. Then suddenly small red emergency lights flickered on across the bridge. The alien officers looked around in shock. Consoles were dead. Holograms had vanished. Weapons systems offline. Navigation gone. One officer whispered nervously. "Commander, the entire ship just lost power." Commander Ralvex slammed his claws onto the dark console. "That is impossible. This is a galactic warship." But another officer checked the diagnostics panel. His voice shook. "Commander, reactor shutdown confirmed. The core is completely offline." A heavy silence filled the room. 3 kilometers of advanced alien technology dead, just like that. Then the commander slowly turned toward the corner of the room, toward the human. The janitor stood there calmly, holding his coffee, almost relaxed. Like this situation wasn't surprising at all. That Ralvex's voice became low and dangerous. "Human." The man looked up. Yes. How did you know this would happen? The officers all stared at him. The human shrugged. You mean the coolant regulator failure? More silence. The commander stepped closer. How do you know about the reactor coolant system? The human took another sip of coffee. Well, he pointed his thumb over his shoulder. I passed by engineering earlier. Your coolant valve was vibrating. One officer frowned. Vibrating? The human nodded. Yep. Which means the pressure stabilizer was failing. Another alien spoke nervously. That is impossible. Those systems are monitored constantly. The human smiled. Yep, by automated sensors. The officer blinked, yes. The human tilted his head. And when was the last time someone physically checked it? Silence. The commander suddenly realized something. Guessing. The human shook his head slowly. No, I'm remembering. Everyone stared at him. The commander's voice hardened. Explain. The human calmly placed his coffee cup on a console. Then he said something that made the entire bridge freeze. I used to design reactors like this. The room went completely quiet. One officer laughed nervously. You expect us to believe a reactor engineer became a janitor? The human shrugged. Budget cuts. A few officers exchanged confused looks, but Commander Ralvex was not laughing. That he studied the human carefully. Human, if you truly understand the reactor, then fix it. The human looked around the dark bridge, then at the panicking officers, then at the dead consoles. He sighed. Well, that depends. The commander narrowed his eyes. On what? The human smiled slightly. On whether you aliens are ready to admit something. The commander growled. What? The human leaned casually against the wall and said calmly, you shouldn't have mocked the janitor. Suddenly, the entire ship shook violently. Far worse than before. Somewhere deep inside the warship, the reactor screamed again. Emergency alarms returned. Core overload risk. An officer shouted in panic. Commander, if the reactor destabilizes again, we could lose the entire ship. 3,000 crew members gone. The commander turned back to the human instantly. His pride disappeared. His voice became serious. Human. The man raised an eyebrow. Yes. Ralvex spoke slowly. You are no longer the janitor. You are now the most important person on this ship. The human picked up his mop again, then sighed. Great. He grabbed his coffee, then looked toward the door. All right, let's go save your warship. And for the first time, the alien officers stepped aside, letting the janitor lead the way. The corridor outside the command deck was chaos. Emergency lights flashed red across the metal walls. Crew members ran in every direction. Technicians shouted into communicators. Power failure across Deck 7. Life support unstable in Sector 12. Reactor pressure rising again. The massive warship Krithos 9 was slowly falling apart, and walking calmly through the chaos was the human janitor, mop in one hand, coffee in the other. Behind him rushed Commander Ralvex and several alien officers. One officer whispered nervously. Commander, are we seriously following the janitor? Ralvex growled quietly. Right now, he is the only one who understands what is happening. They reached the engineering sector. The huge reactor doors were sealed. Sparks flew from damaged panels. Two alien engineers were trying to override the lock. One of them shouted, Commander, the reactor is unstable. If the coolant system doesn't restart soon, we could have a core breach. The human walked past them calmly. Move. The engineers looked annoyed. And who are you supposed to be? The commander answered before the human could speak. He is fixing the reactor. The engineers stared in disbelief. That's a human janitor. The human sighed. Yes. And right now your janitor is the only one stopping your ship from exploding. The engineers slowly stepped aside. The human crouched beside the damage control panel. He didn't rush, he didn't panic, but he simply looked at the system for a few seconds. Then he nodded. Yep. What I expected. One engineer crossed his arms. And what exactly is that? The human pointed at the panel. Your coolant regulator failed. That caused pressure spikes. The automated safety system shut the reactor down. The engineer frowned. That is standard procedure. The human nodded. Correct. Then he tapped the screen again. But the shutdown sequence also locked your manual override. The engineers looked confused. That shouldn't happen. The human smirked. It shouldn't. But it did. Commander Ralvex stepped forward. Human, can you fix it? The human scratched the back of his head. Technically, yes. Practically, he shrugged. It's complicated. Another violent tremor shook the ship. Alarm screamed again. Core pressure. Engineer panicked. Commander, reactor temperature is climbing. If the coolant pumps don't restart, soon the reactor will melt down. The human stood up slowly. Then he said something unexpected. Do you guys have a screwdriver? The engineers blinked. What? A screwdriver. The commander growled. This is a galactic warship, human. We have advanced tools. The human nodded. Cool. Do you have a screwdriver? One engineer handed him a tool. The human crouched down and removed the panel completely. Wires and glowing circuits were exposed. The alien engineers watched nervously. The human studied the system for a few seconds. Then he reached inside and pulled out a small burned component. He held it up. This is the problem. One engineer squinted. That's just a pressure limiter chip. The human nodded. Exactly. It burned out. So the reactor thinks the pressure is infinite. The engineer frowned. That is impossible. The human smiled. Welcome to reality. Commander Ralvex stepped closer. Can it be replaced? The human shook his head. No spare parts on this deck. The room went silent. The reactor alarms became louder. Core overload, engineer whispered. Commander, we are running out of time. The commander turned to the human. Then what do we do? The human looked at the broken chip, then slowly looked at the mop in his hand, and suddenly he smiled. Oh, I've got an idea. The engineers looked confused. What kind of idea? The human broke the wooden handle off the mop. Then he started pulling wires out of the broken panel. The engineers stared in horror. What are you doing? The human calmly tied the wires together using pieces of the mop handle. He worked quickly, like someone had done this many times before. Finally, he stepped back. All right. He wiped his hands. Try restarting the reactor. One engineer hesitated. That should not work. The human took a sip of coffee. Probably. Try it anyway. The engineer slowly pressed the restart command. For a moment, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the reactor roared back to life. Power surged through the entire warship. Lights across the ship turned on again. Systems rebooted. Weapons online. Navigation restored. The engineering room went completely silent. Every alien stared at the human. Commander Ralvex spoke slowly. You repaired a galactic reactor with a mop handle? The human picked up his mop again. Yep. Then he shrugged. Engineering is mostly just creative problem solving. The aliens stared at him like they were seeing something terrifying. And the commander realized something. This human was far more dangerous than they thought. The reactor room stayed silent for a long moment. NO alarms, NO explosions, NO warnings. Just the deep, steady hum of the reactor running perfectly again. Alien engineers slowly looked at their monitors. Power output stabilized. Coolant pressure normal. Energy distribution balance point. One engineer whispered in disbelief. That is impossible. Another checked the diagnostics again. No system errors. No overheating. No pressure spike. Commander Ralvex slowly turned toward the human. The janitor was already picking up his mop. Like nothing unusual had happened, he took another sip of coffee. All right, that should hold for a while. One engineer walked closer. How did you do that? The human shrugged. Temporary bypass. The broken limiter chip was confusing the reactor. So I just forced the pressure feedback loop to stabilize. The engineer blinked. You forced a reactor stabilization using wood. The human nodded. Technically, yes. Though it's more about electrical resistance than the wood itself. The alien engineers looked even more confused. Commander Ralvex crossed his arms. Human. The janitor looked up. Yes, Commander. You said that fix was temporary. The human nodded. Yeah. How long will it hold? The human thought for a moment. Maybe 6 hours. The entire room froze. 6 hours? One engineer shouted. That's barely enough time to replace the component. The human nodded again. Correct. Commander Ralvex frowned. Why didn't you say that earlier? The human took another sip of coffee. because earlier the ship was about to explode. Now it's not. The commander rubbed his temples. Wonderful. The engineers immediately started preparing repair equipment. But something was bothering Ralvex. He looked at the human carefully. You understand our reactor systems better than most of my engineers. The human smiled slightly. Maybe. The commander narrowed his eyes. You are a janitor. Yes. You repair reactors. Sometimes. You predicted the failure before our engineers. Yeah. Ralvex stepped closer. Who exactly are you? The human didn't answer. Instead, he looked toward the reactor, watching the glowing energy core. Then he said something quietly. You know, your engineers weren't wrong. The commander frowned. What do you mean? The human pointed to the reactor display. The limiter chip didn't fail randomly. The engineers stopped working. What? The human zoomed into the system logs. There. See that spike? One engineer leaned closer. That's external interference. The commander's eyes widened. Sabotage? The human nodded. Yep. The room suddenly became tense. One engineer asked nervously. Who would sabotage a warship reactor? The human looked directly at the commander. Probably the same people who attacked your ship earlier. The commander's expression darkened. You mean the Drax Dominion? The human shrugged. Most likely. Another officer rushed into the room. Commander, we just detected unknown ships approaching. The commander turned quickly. How many? 5. No, wait. 8 ships. The officer looked terrified. They matched Drax Dominion battle signatures. The room went cold. The engineers stared at the commander. One whispered. They followed us, the officer continued. They will reach firing range in 9 minutes. The commander looked at the human. And our reactor? The human checked the timer on the panel. 6 hours of temporary stability. Plenty of time. The commander growled. You don't understand. If we fight now, the reactor will be pushed to maximum output. The human nodded. True. That would destroy my bypass. The commander's voice became serious, and then the reactor explodes. The human calmly finished his coffee. Yep. Silence filled the engineering bay. 8 enemy warships, a damaged reactor, and only minutes before battle, the commander asked quietly, Human, can you fix it properly? The human looked at the broken limiter chip again, then at the approaching enemy fleet on the display. Then he smiled slightly. Yeah, I can fix it. The commander felt a wave of relief. How long will it take? The human thought for a moment. Then he said something that made everyone nervous. Depends. On what? The commander asked. The human grabbed his mop again. On how much chaos you're okay with. Commander Ralvex stared at him that he was starting to realize something. This human didn't just solve problems, that he solved them in ways that terrified everyone watching. And with enemy warships approaching, that might be exactly what they needed. Engineering Bay Ka atmosphere suddenly tense. Ho Gaia. Outside the ship, 8 Drax Dominion warships fast approach Kara Rahi, the bridge is the emergency transmission IE. Commander, enemy ships entering weapons range in 6 minutes. Commander Ralvex, any human key to Raf Deka. Human, Agar reactor failhua. Yes, ship explode Hoj Aga. Human any calmly toolbox cola. Han Padahai. Engineer Nipanik main pucha. Tofirtum itne relaxed kuno. Human any ex screwdriver Athea. Because I already have a plan. Commander ne guse aur curiosity que mixtone main poha. Kaisa plan. Human knee broken limiter chip KO Deca. For reactor core key Taraf. For Bola. Your reactor problem actually ek weakness nai ek weapon high. Room suddenly silent o Gaia punto engineer ne confuse o carpucha. Weapon. Kumane display par kutsk calculations run kie. Tumcharis hipkareats are normally %% output par chalracha hotechai. Engineer NE Sir Halaya. Yes. Human muscureya, mais que 140% output par le JS Actaun. Entire engineering team shock, main freeze ho gai. 140%. Impossible high. Human ne calme car. Impossible nai. Pas dangereux. Commander Halvex ne gus se pusha. Dangereux kitna. Human any shoulder shrug kai. Best case. Hum sabak janch. Worst case. Ship explode ho jaega. Silence punto ek engineer nes lolipucha. Ye best kaze kaiseo saktai. Human any displays zoom kia. Simple. Overload reactor. Release excess energy through weapon systems. Commander kiankin widen ogai. Tum kerayo, human is malkia. An. X single shot. Yo enemy fleet ko vaporize karde. Room completely silent ho Gaia. Engineer whisper cardi Hubola. That kind of energy output would be insane. Human any casually kaha. Welcome to human engineering. Bridge SE for message Aya. Commander, enemy sheep en train firing formation. Commander, any human key teraf deca. Kitna time chahi. Human any reactor panel open kia. 3 minutes. Commander, any turret order dia. Give a human whatever he needs. Engineering, team instantly compar la gai, human nekables rerot kia, safeti lox disable kia, ritor limiters overde kia, warning alarms ikke bad ek aktivate honelage. Urning, ritor overload ruskengin er chilea. Output 95. Human any calmly ka. Keep it going. 110%. Commander any don't benchly yeah. By the stars, 125%. Entire ship shake hone lagi. Lights flicker Karn Lage. Engineer panic main bola. Structural limits exceed ho rahi hain. Human chalea. Almost there. 138%. Commandez ne bridge se contact kia. Prépare main weapon. Human any final switch press kia. 140%. Entire reactor roar Karn laga. Energy weapons charge hone lage. Outside, Drax fleet attack formation main AA Chucky T. Unko lag Raha the alien warship helpless high. Commander any deep breath leave fire. Ship front se ek blinding beam of energy nikli dot ek beam nahi. J's ek small star explode ho Gaia ho. Energy wave space main spread hui. Or Drax fleet Kuwait ships ek second main vaporize ho gay ino debris ino survivors. Surf empty space. Bridge par complete silence the sensors any confirm kia. Enemy fleet destroyed. Commander slowly whisper kia. Impossible. Engineering bay main sab log stun kata the. Human calmly reactor shutdown car raha the. Output slowly normal hogaya. Engineer any shock main pucha. Tum log. Humans. A solutions kai sakti ho. Human any apna coffee mugathea. Or smile kia. Simple rule. If something is broken, turn it into a weapon. Commander Ralvex, Usco Deca. For quietly Bola, human, from today, you are not the janitor. Human any eyebrow raise Kia. Oh, Commander any officially announced Kia. You are now chief engineering advisor of this ship. Human any Ciplia. Nice. For casually Bola. Does that come with better coffee? Entire crew finally laugh Karnlagi. Or Ustin Essie. Alien fleet main ek new rule ad hua. Never underestimate the human janitor.